What's up, traders? Matt from the Trade Brigade here doing a technical analysis on ticker symbol SNDL for Sundial growers. On the left-hand side, we have the daily time frame, and on the right-hand side, the 30-minute intraday time frame. Now, this chart was previously marked up a ton of levels down here, some resistance trend lines, no longer really relevant. Obviously, on Friday's session, earnings did push prices up and higher, giving us a big gap up, and right now we're trading just below the daily 200 SMA, the green line on my chart there. So let's start off by giving ourselves a daily roadmap, if you will, just pointing out obvious areas of support and resistance. Then we'll talk more nuance as we drill down to the 30-minute intraday time frame. But for now, these are the numbers that I would just quickly point out from the daily. Right now, coming into resistance for overhead levels, this area in here, if we could get that click, there we go. I would say that this is probably important as well. Then we'll go one more here and then up to the pivot high, the big one, way up closer to $1.50. Now, I'm not saying that into this upcoming week, all of these upside targets will be in play here, but from a structural standpoint, these are the numbers to be paying attention to, okay? So let's zoom in, talk a little bit more and sort of fine tune what's going on here. Let's go ahead and adjust this level up to the low of Friday because obviously we have a gap underneath us. Let's go ahead and zoom back in. Actually, that was kind of annoying. Thank you, Thinkorswim, for that. So zooming back in a little bit here. There we go. I would just simply point out that underneath Friday's low, the gap does start to fill. So breakdown of 80 cents starts to fill back closer to 0.7282. Now, I'm not saying that will be the likely scenario, but again, from a structural standpoint, that is what you would watch out for on a break of 80 cents. Now, instead, let's talk more nuance from the 30-minute, right? And what actually unfolded here. If you look at the action, it's actually kind of funny, right? All of the red candles obviously moving lower in succession, and all of the green candles with no red moving in succession higher. If you look at the volume, it's split right down the middle at noontime. So again, just kind of interesting and kind of comical from that perspective. But from an actual actionable standpoint and what's going on here from a psychology standpoint, if the sellers were really strong, this would have continued and this would have filled the gap on the first go into that 0.7282, which we just discussed. So although there was some selling pressure, right, you can't ignore that from Friday morning, it's not like the sellers were really strong, right? If they were really strong, again, the gap would have filled and maybe we would have moved back down inside of this prior range from in here. It just simply did not happen. So from a location standpoint, bullish, right? Obviously, we're much higher in terms of actual price point. In terms of activity and how it unfolded, again, fairly bullish as well. Notice that we had a strong selling, not that strong, but strong in comparison to, something that would have been more sideways, right? This was just literally straight down out of the gates, but all of it was retraced. So then you get stronger buyers coming back in. And notice the most important thing here is that we actually closed back above the opening print. Now, certainly not close to the high of day, but above the opening print, which to me is fairly interesting. So all things considered, we are looking for upward continuation based on the fact that we have stronger buyers stepping up. The stronger seller did not fill the gap, right? So that's a sign of weakness from the sellers. And, location is obviously higher. So what are we looking out for? Well, quite simply put, the ultimate target would be here at the 1.03484, or excuse me, 1.0384. There we go. But what stands in the way, right? Obviously, $1, the psychological resistance. Now, if we look at what the stock did in the past at and around 1, let me just go ahead and throw this level on here like that. It's close enough, and then we'll extend that to the left. What's going on at that area? It's not like I guess it is a fairly important level. You can see here, interactions in here. But if I scroll to the more recent time frame, notice how in here we just chopped right through it. And it was really about, as I pointed out, this level here at the 1.0384, okay? So maybe start to treat this as a zone of resistance if the move is going to be higher here inside of Sundial, and we see that upward continuation. Now, what would set that move into play? Well, a couple of things. Firstly, I would say that any pullbacks, so something like this, that holds this, the 0.88, that's bullish. Look for upward continuation after that on the hold. Or you could be more conservative and take the break up and over the high of the day, right? So that turns into something like this. And then from there, you can monitor those upside targets, which we pointed out from the earlier portion of today's video. The last thing I want to do is, of course, take out the fibs, because whenever we're dealing with expansion of range, it's just nice to know where we stand from that perspective. Notice that the 50% mark of the day's range is tying in perfectly with that known area of resistance and support from back in here. So to me, it just builds the case even further that if we do hold this, that would be a beautiful higher low. So here's your anchor low, higher low builds here, then we can potentially move higher and kick off a new uptrend inside of Sundial. That's really going to wrap it up. A couple of scenarios we covered, a couple of really important numbers, and we talked about the psychology of what unfolded from Friday's session. If you enjoyed the video or learned anything new today, let me know in the comments section or by giving the video a thumbs up. Don't forget our main channel is linked in the description, and all of that being said, I wish you a green trading week.